to today's broadcast of North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of NIC television students, and your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
Today is very special here at the North Idaho College TV Public Forum. We have reached another milestone. This is our 800th program. We've been on the air for 17 years, and doing 52 shows a year, it takes a while to get to number 800. And as we open up this special program, I would like to express a very deep appreciation to a number of individuals and organizations. First of all, I would like to thank KSPS TV, Channel 7 in Spokane, that's been so generous to us for so many years to allow us to air this program each week to the Pacific Northwest and into British Columbia and Alberta. I would like to give a very special thanks to my colleague and friend, Michael J. Miller, who is the Director of Media Services at North Idaho College and has made this program very professional with his advice and his consultations. I would also like to thank Pat Richard, who did that same job for 13 years prior to Michael J. Miller. We also have Darren Cheney, who is the Coordinator of Educational TV, and I work with him on a weekly basis, and he is so professional and an enjoyment to work with and keeps us in the focus that we should be. I also want to thank the administration, the Board of Trustees at North Idaho College, the faculty, my colleagues, and the students at North Idaho College. And a very special thank you to the student crew that has worked with us now for 17 years. And I find them most impressive after just a few weeks. They do what we believe to be very professional work. I would also like to thank the student government at North Idaho College. It is through their funding that they allow us to bring speakers from all over the country that wind up on this program. And we're very grateful to the student government for 17 years to do that. And I want to address the two panel members that are with us today. They've been with me a long time, and I have a very special thank you, first of all, to Idaho State Senator Mary Lou Reed. I'm happy to announce that she's in her 16th year on this program, and she's a very busy person and has served on many commissions, appointed by a governor of our state and throughout the Northwest, and now has a lot of responsibility as a state senator. But she's always found time for this program, and not only this program, but to assist us in putting together symposiums with all her ideas. And Senator Reed, we thank you and are grateful that you continue to serve and help us.
Oh, Tony, thank you very much for your words. And you know, it's just been a wonderful opportunity. And we really thank you for the time and effort you've put into this program. It's been a very special 17 years.
And I also want to equally thank Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in Idaho. She has been equally dedicated to this program now for 15 years. And I can tell a story that indicates and illustrates her dedication is the same as Senator Reed's. For a period of time on this program, she attended law school, and she has a spouse and two sons, and she was able to go to law school, work with her family, and still do these programs, and that has always been most impressive. And Janelle, we thank you for all your commitment to the program.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here.
And today we're very happy to have as our subject what we believe will be the most help in celebrating this program. We want to talk about the electronic media, television, and its role in reporting public policy, and particularly want to look to the future, because as we celebrate 17 years, we want to go forward. And we're very fortunate to have with us a very distinguished member of the media from Spokane. Our guest is Kevin McCarty, who is a news reporter at KXLY TV in Spokane. His specialty is crime reporting, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that he has covered. Kevin, it's a special pleasure to have you here, and thank you for helping us with this special program.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here on your 800th program. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will ask Senator Reed to commence the questioning.
Okay, Kevin, this is going to be fun. You know, television is certainly very trendy. We're very trendy people. Mm-hmm. What would you say are the trends right now in TV programming, in the news and in the general programs and in the advertising? What are some of the things that are going on now that seem to be moving us into the future?
Well, of course, if I could put my finger on the trends of television completely, I'd be making millions of dollars.
You'd be in charge.
I'd be in charge making millions of dollars. But what I see from my perspective isn't that good, unfortunately. I think we've seen in the last few months quite a bit of what's become known as the trash TV, sensationalistic reenactments of violent crimes that seem to pander more to the audience's morbid curiosity rather than their intelligence. And I think that is the fault of the people producing the programs. I think the audience is more intelligent than we give them credit for sometimes,
Well,
unfortunately.
Kevin, is there anybody in charge? Do you have a sense that there are czars up there who are actually feeling responsible and feeling some sense of ethical purpose?
I'm one of those people who believes that the czars is the viewing public. What you're seeing, in my opinion, what you're seeing is an imitation of what has been successful. When one show, such as I've described, grabs an audience, there are people who are quick to fall in line. And it will take some time before the people in television realize whether or not that's what the public really wants.
So television, you think, is not leading, it's following.
Definitely.
And perhaps it needs to find a new role in which it does carry out some leadership?
In certain respects, television has always been a follower, and in certain respects, television has found itself in a leadership role. It's difficult from our perspective to find out when we are in fact leading and when we're following. And I think we surprise ourselves when we find ourselves leading. Some of the things that television has done, covering the funeral of John F. Kennedy, covering space programs.
Impressive.
Things like that, we find ourselves afterwards saying, that's what television is all about. And unfortunately, we don't always hit on that. But I think I'm a big believer in television. I don't want to criticize it completely, because I believe television does a lot of good. Unfortunately, we need to get rid of the bad.
So you'd say this is kind of a valley rather than definitely a long-term trend that's going to take us into trashier and trashier valleys?
I think so. Certainly, having been to a few news director conferences in the last couple of weeks with some managers from our station, I've been hearing a lot of this from the people who are in charge. They don't like it either. They don't want it there. And they want intelligent television. And we're working on it.
That's great.
Janelle Bird.
My question is going to follow along with what Lou was already asking you. How is the news made? How do you decide as a reporter what you're going to cover? How do you decide which stories you're going to follow up?
Well, each day, of course, we're faced with that decision. What do we go cover and what do we not cover? In my job as a police reporter, of course, I'm in and out of the police station and the courts, and I'm trying to decide what do the people out there want to know about? What trials today, taking place in the courthouse, are they interested in? Which ones would they sit in on if they had the day to sit in on trial? And I try to take them in there, if I can. Take them in, show them the trial, give them the tone of what happened that day in the night's newscast. Of course, you can't cover from beginning to end what a trial is like, what it's like to go to the scene of a homicide, of an accident. It's impossible to do in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But you try to give them the feeling and the facts. Not the feelings that I have, but the feeling around the situation, and of course the facts, so that they can make up their own decision. And you've got to balance it just as carefully as you can, which I try to do.
Do you try sometimes also to put in a message, a moral to your story, so to speak? Do you ever try to educate people to a certain fact?
I wouldn't put myself on a pedestal to say that I educate the public. What I hope to do in putting a moral into the story is let the people involved give the moral. If there is a moral, it needs to come from the people who are in the story. It's very difficult, but it's very important for me as a reporter to leave my opinion and what I think should be out of the story, because it's not my job. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you have to slap yourself in the wrist and get back. That's not your business. Your business is to tell people what this side said, what that side said, and what the facts say, and let them make up their own minds. And I think people see through. I think they see through to that.
I think what you're saying is that you let them make the conclusion that you are not editorializing. Do you think there's a place then for editorializing in television, in the television medium, as opposed to the newspapers, where of course one expects editorializing on editorial pages?
Certainly I do. I think there is a place for editorializing. I guess the question is who's going to do it. I don't think it's a reporter's position, simply because the public identifies with us because it's television and it's a personality medium, and they need to see me as a messenger, somebody who is going to bring them the straight facts, and not as somebody who's going to come on and tell them what I think should be done. I do think there's a place for it. It's being done in Spokane on a limited basis. It's done in other markets, other cities, on a much larger scale, and I think there's more room for it in Spokane. People within the community can come forward and speak. It doesn't always have to be the general manager of the television station or the news director. someone in the community stand up and say, I believe this about what's happening in our community. I think there should be more of it.
Kevin, I always view issues usually with some positive and some negative, and I think television and coverage of public policy fits in both those categories, and I'd like to pursue that with you. I was just thinking the other day when the terrible tragedy took place in the Soviet Union and the great earthquakes, and how important television was, and the media in particular, as they covered that story. I'd like to first of all get your reaction, how the media, in that being an example, can almost instantly rally a world to deal with the problem. Isn't that a real positive part of television?
I think so. I think that's where television is at its best. You can use, for example, a few years ago, the famines in Ethiopia. That was covered pretty extensively in print, and there wasn't the public outcry and the groups that formed against the starvation and came forward with money until people saw what was happening. When they saw people dying and they saw families starving by the hundreds of thousands, then they stood up and did something. And I think the same thing is happening with Armenia. Certainly, if I told you there was an earthquake that killed tens of thousands, you'd think it was a tragedy and you'd want to do something. But when you see it, it brings it home. You see people that look just like you having the reaction you would be having if your family had gone through a catastrophe like that. And I think that registers in people's minds. They start to think, what if that was me? And then they're more willing to help. And I think the outpouring of aid from America has been fantastic. And I don't credit television for that. I credit the American people. Television has just helped them see what they need to do.
But without that information, they could not act if they didn't know the magnitude of the problem.
Certainly. As I was listening to it, I was out of town listening to most of the reports on radio. And one of the things that occurred to me was the pictures that are going to come out of this place are really going to strike people. When they see what's going on there, that's when they're really going to open their hearts to these people and realize that it could just as well be them, or these are just people. Even though they're Soviets, suddenly that's going to be wiped aside, I think, by most Americans when they see that they're just people and they need our help.
On the more negative side, let's talk about candidates. And I know there's a limited amount of money and they have to get on television to be successful. For president, for example, and it's very expensive, so they take 30-second spots. Has television as a medium been a problem in that we deal more with image and slogans and not substantive issues? Does it have a negative result in that area?
Well, I think I'd fall back on what some of the other people in the business said, since I didn't cover too much of the political battles that we just went through. I think certainly we've sort of created our own trap as far as candidates know that they have a minute and a half every night, and they want to take advantage of that. So they have that message of the day that became so popular, and the soundbite candidates that we all had to endure throughout the election. And to a certain extent, yes, that is the media's fault. We should have seen through that and gone to the issues and forced the candidates away from the platforms. You know, you can't have the soapbox just to give a message of the day. Here's the issue people are asking about. Here's what people think you should be talking about. We can't ignore the message of the day because that's what the candidate has to say. He's running for president of the United States. We've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. When he says, this is what I want to say today, we can't say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. He's risen to a pretty lofty peak. We have to listen. But I think we also need to put him on, to back him against the wall and say, here's what the American people want to know, and keep them to it.
Thank you. Mary Lou Reed.
Well, Kevin, where do you think this minute-and-a-half pace evolved? Why, we all talk about minute-and-a-half bites, and everything is a minute and a half. Where did that come from? That's pretty short.
It is pretty short. I don't know exactly where it came from. Something you don't see in Canada. In Canadian television, you'll see stories go for 3-4 minutes without any problem. And I've certainly done stories that are up to 15-20 minutes in length. And they are interesting. There are a lot of producers in television who believe that the audience has to see either a change of scenery or change of subject every 15 seconds, or that they'll lose interest. I personally don't happen to believe that, although I'm held to it sometimes because I'm in a business. And then there are times when I've seen a minute-and-a-half story be too long.
Just sort of drag out.
Just drag out. I think television is we're a brief medium in news. We're not meant to tell the entire story with background and all different opinions. We're meant to take people places they can't go themselves. That's why I feel it's important personally for people to rely on all kinds of medium. You shouldn't just rely on television for your news. You should pick up the newspaper. You should pick up a weekly magazine. Get as much perspective as you can and put them all together and then form your opinions. Don't just watch a television report and base your opinion on that.
Well, but that's very good advice, but the fact of the matter is that most people do get most of their news from the television.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with after the automobile was invented, it took decades before society really understood how it had been changed by the automobile. And do you think that we fully understand what some of these habits, what the impact is going to have upon future society? Certainly with the minute and a half, will we be able to think in longer terms? Are we going to have minute and a half thoughts and then change the subject? This is always a concern, that we're teaching thinking habits through this kind of programming. Does that worry you?
It does. Just like anybody, I think there needs to be more in-depth reporting. The most satisfying reports I've ever done have been extremely long by television standards. I produced a series in May. Almost every segment, 5 parts, ran over 7 minutes. And there will still be times when people will look at something that long and they can't believe it's that long because it held their interest. And I think that's the point. Sometimes we insult the public's intelligence by not giving them enough. But I think we're moving away from that. You see CNN, it's got a good deal more in-depth reporting, and they are also getting a public response. And people look to that and watch it carefully. And I think in the future you'll see stories get a little bit longer, perhaps, when they need to be.
And do you think people are hungry for beef? They really do want more substance and less sort of flashy image?
I think so. I really do think so. I think the public is becoming media wise. There used to be a time, I think, when television was a mystery and a marvel to them. Now television is a tool that the average person is learning to use. They're being taught in school. They're being taught as they grow up how they should use television. And I think once that becomes more acceptable, as I believe it is, television will follow suit. We'll follow the lead of the public. When they tell us what they want to see, we'll follow them, because television reporters, programming, entertainment, we're slaves to the public, and we should be.
Janelle Burke.
Is an effort being made to balance the news according to subject matter? Do stations determine that they're going to cover something from medicine, they're going to cover something from law, they're going to cover something from the political arena? Or do these stories kind of happen and then they're covered?
No, we do know that there are certain arenas that the public's going to be interested in almost on a regular basis. For instance, our newscast runs a health beat segment on a nightly basis. Health is something the American people are very interested in. And a lot of us in television didn't realize that until we get surveys. And we find out that people are interested in health. And they're interested in health a lot more than we thought they were. So we begin to produce on a nightly basis the health reports. Marianne Mishima does it for us. And we get a fantastic response because people want to know. They're very health conscious. And we learn as we go that this is what they want to see. Crime for a long time was not considered to be something you put on television that much. You covered it in a small way. There was the attitude that if we report too much crime, we're encouraging it. That's changed in Spokane. People have become very conscious of the crime going on around them, and in the entire area, the Inland Northwest, not just in the Spokane area. They've become sensitive to it, perhaps because of the South Hill rapes, other things that have happened. As people in Spokane see their community fall victim to the same kind of crimes that take place in larger cities, I think they want to know. Of course, they don't enjoy it. None of us enjoy it. But they want to know what's going on so they know what to do.
Do you see a continued specialization in those kinds of fields, reporting to a particular area?
It's growing more than it used to be in the past. General assignment reporters, which is what most of us are called, seem to be fading away a little bit. Some of the news directors I've spoken to, like I said, some of the conferences I've gone to in the last few months, are looking for reporters who cover a beat. That's the old newspaper style. You have the court reporter, the crime reporter, the county government reporter, that's returning because we're going to the arenas that we know the public has interest in, what their elected officials are doing, what their guardians are doing, what the police are doing, what the doctors are doing, the lawyers, the movers and shakers in their town. And then, of course, there are other things going on that we follow as they happen, tragedies, catastrophes. But somehow we always come back to the elected officials and the movers and the shakers because they're the ones who take the responsibility when something happens.
Now, many of us watch television. We identify with certain reporters. We identify with certain personalities. How much will this strong personality as a person that you watch continue to be the trend in the future, do you think?
I don't think that's going to go away that I can see. But I look upon the public identifying with my personality, for instance, as they would with a writer. You get used to a writing style. If you read the same reporter in the paper, you might read a story and realize there was something familiar or something interesting that you'd seen in the past and look up on the byline and there's the reporter's name. And I've read him before, I've read her before, and I find them interesting. I like their style. It's the same thing with television reporters. They identify with your style as a reporter, not as a person. I think most people would be surprised that know me as a reporter on television if they met me in person. You don't see a lot of my personality come through on a story. It really doesn't have a whole lot of business in the story. But I do have a certain style that's identifiable. Some like it, some don't.
I want to get into that area, and we talked just a little about that on the program today already. Before the program, Kevin, you and I were talking about some of the stories you cover. It's obvious that you would have a definite opinion as you deal with both sides, yet you've got to report what is happening with both sides. How do you deal with that when you particularly feel so strongly that one position is very close to your own?
The first time I ever really dealt with that, I was just getting started. I was in radio in Palm Springs, California, and I went to a rally for an initiative on the California ballot. I had a very strong opinion about this initiative and how I should approach it. And I went to an organization, a rally held by the group that was the opposing opinion from mine. And it was the first time I ever actually had to sit down and tell myself, your opinion really has no business in this story. I have got to report what happened, not what I think should happen. I can't put a dissenting opinion in to this story because I don't have the dissenting opinion. My duty was to report what happened at that rally, and that rally was their opinions and not mine. And you do have to slap yourself around if necessary. Keep your opinions out of the story. I've had to go back, pull sentences out, pull phrases out that I felt were biased, too much of my opinion, and just kind of police yourself. If you don't, the public will, because they'll write you a letter and tell you that was your opinion and you better keep it out of our stories.
Kevin, we're going to take a break in the program here. Excuse me, we may get to come back, but you've done a series that we have been looking at in the human rights movement that was in Montana. We're very fortunate to have with us today the president of the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, Norm Gessel, who is an attorney in Idaho. And our task force has been known for some years for its work in human rights, and even itself received a national award, the Raoul Wallenberg Civic Award. And I'm very happy to introduce Norm Gessel, who is the president of the task force, to present an award to you for your reporting in the past. Norm?
Thank you very much, Tony. For the people in the KXLY viewing audience in the spring of this year, they learned two things. One, that there was a serious new political movement in Sanders County, Montana, and two, that there was a very excellent new reporter in the Inland Empire, and that's Kevin McCarty. You can't get involved in the civil rights area at all without recognizing immediately that one of the essential ingredients for a successful civil rights activity and a successful confrontation of racists is excellent television reporting. And Mr. McCarty provided us with that in the spring of this year. I would like to read from this award, if I may. The Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations presents the Human Rights Excellence in Reporting Award to Kevin McCarty, KXLY TV Spokane, for a 5-part series on We the People of Sanders County in Sanders County, Montana. Kevin, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gessel, we appreciate very much you presenting that award, and we want to add our congratulations and appreciation, because it's what we've been talking about today. You did an in-depth series, 5 5 days, and there was a real reaction in that community from all quarters. And I think that's part of reporting, is to get the people to discuss their county or their community. And I was a witness to some of the response to your reporting, and I know the panel joins with me in congratulating you on receiving this award from an organization that we think is a very committed organization to human dignity.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm honored. And I think that story taught me more than any other story I've ever done that the power of the media that you hear so much about really lies in the public reaction. We didn't do anything to motivate or mobilize the people of Sanders County. We never suggested that they should form a task force or address the issue in any way. We simply told them what was going on. They were the ones who decided what action to take, and I was impressed with what they did. And it was a pleasure to have taken part, to have watched, actually, witnessed this, the people stand up against something that they felt was not right. When we moved into Sanders County to start the story, they were afraid to talk to us about what was going on. We could talk, but don't use my name, and I don't want you to tell anybody that you've spoken to me. And after it aired, they stood up, and it was a proud moment for us, and I think an even prouder moment for the people of Sanders County.
Well, this is kind of quality reporting that we're talking about. We wish we had more time. We want to celebrate with our guests, and we wished all of our viewers could be in the studio with us today. I think Norm Gissel has a cake that he's going to bring forward. I think when we celebrate, you always use cake, and balloons are another thing that we often in the Human Rights Celebration deal with. And I think we're going to get a picture in a moment if Norm will move on in. This is the cake that we're going to celebrate, as I've been telling our viewers when we leave the air. We have a number of people in the studio who are friends of this program, and we're excited about them being with us today. And we will have a ceremony of cutting the cake, and we will ask our guest, Kevin McCarty, to do that for us. And he has his spouse with him today, which we're very proud of. And we'll ask that Mary Lou and Janelle have the first piece of cake because they deserve it for so many years on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say to you that we want to today say thank you for a long time. Many of you have been with us a very long time. You write to us, you call us, you meet us on the street, and you talk to us, and we are very grateful for that. We hope you will continue to watch, and we invite you to write to us here at North Idaho College, and we answer all correspondence. We take your suggestions very seriously. We hope to continue to bring you this program in the future, and we hope someday that we'll be able to celebrate another milestone in the history of the North Idaho College TV Public Forum. And I again want to thank Kevin McCarty and the panel for a very stimulating program.
Thank you.
I hope you'll be with us again next week. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a nice thing.
North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at the same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by an NIC student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.